Yeah. Welcome to the Life Limitless Podcast, where we talk all things life and the topics are limitless. We're back with another great episode. Today, we have somebody very dear and very special to me. And I feel like it's going to be a very great and special episode because there's a lot of things that we're going to learn from. And my guest will actually introduce herself. We share a very close relationship because she's my sister. But apart from being my sister, she's done so many things for herself. And I hope we all gonna enjoy the conversation, talking to her and getting to know her and hear what she has to say. How are you doing today, buddy?
I'm good, bud. So you said I must introduce myself.
Yes. Please introduce yourself for us so that the people know who we have as a guest today.
Okay. So firstly, I am indeed your eldest sister. So just for context for the rest of the listeners, we come from a typical Zuma family. We don't, you know how we do it in our family.
How do we do it?
It's never like a one-man show. We come in sevens.
We come in packs. We hyenas. Swag.
So I'm the eldest, and Ed Zuma is actually a twin with my sister, and they're the youngest.
Yeah.
So
fun fact.
Yeah, and then so in terms of myself, outside of being Placenta's eldest sister, I am an active citizen at heart. And often describe myself as an accountant that talks too much. So
Why do you say you're an accountant that talks too much?
So I'm an accountant by profession, qualified, an associate general accountant with the South African Institute of Chartered Accountants, SAICA.
Okay.
But then outside of that, I actually also, the way the talking comes in, I don't practice on a day-to-day as an accountant. I'm actually now a sales professional in the software industry. And it sort of ties in with my background because I work in the auditing and accounting software space. And what opened the door for me into the software and sales space was my ability to communicate. So the profession keeps me employed, but the gift of the gab makes the employment more unique to me. Yeah,
that's great. That's actually fantastic. We're getting such an insight of the person that you are, which is part and parcel of what I wanted us to start to talk about. Many people, when it comes to identifying themselves or saying who they are, they find it hard to spot the things that make them who they are. And I noticed that when you introduced yourself, you mentioned your qualification, meaning it plays a particular role in your identity as well, and also that communication thing, the gift of the gab, and your ability to speak also comes as something that you identify yourself with. What other things do you feel like you identify yourself with to a point where you could say that Maui describe or okay, I am also this and that and that?
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I was just gonna say that in understanding the question, the in a nutshell, what it's asking is, who am I?
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
And
yes.
Yes. Oh, and you're right that oftentimes once you've achieved something, be it become a professional, at times we tend to use the things that we've acquired through the journey of life to describe ourselves. But now in answering your question on who am I think it's also important for one to consider the essence of my being, regardless of what had I not studied accounting, for example, who would I be? And that then for me answers the identity question. And to answer that, the person that I would say I am is, first and foremost, Simphiwe is a leader. And
at heart.
At heart, and the reason I say that is because my belief in terms of what is and who is a leader is that it is a person who is able to show direction and also influence people to move in that direction. So one of the things that I believe come naturally to me have been, for example, as mentioned, I'm the eldest at home, and
that comes with a responsibility on its own.
And almost almost naturally, I've had to show direction and to lead by example. And to also influence. So one of the best examples I can share is, out of our siblings, we all are potentially or have become graduates. And one of the things is, I have always consistently showed up in that space. Then I would say that Simphiwe is a leader. And then the second thing about who I am, and again coming back to, regardless of what I've achieved, who at heart would I be? I believe that I am an active citizen, and that is, I am uncomfortable with being a couch potato, or with being if there's a problem, let's say in where I am, be it at school or at church or in my community, and I want to be part of the people that are providing a solution. I want to be part of the people that are saying we won't sit back while there's an issue. So at heart, I am active and an active participant in creating positive change wherever I am. And then thirdly, I am an intelligent person, and that plays a role in the contribution that I make, and I believe that intelligence exists even without academia. So in being
most
able
definitely.
to you apply yourself, And the other reason is because academia has got thresholds or measures in place to
be able to measure intelligence.
And at times perhaps it's not even measuring intelligence, but it's measuring your ability to comprehend and regurgitate what you've been given. Whereas intelligence, in my opinion, is regardless of whether you've ever been at school or not, your ability to apply your mind to a subject matter beforehand. And I believe that I have been given the gift of being able to apply myself. I think I'll stick to those 3 areas for now, in terms of who I believe I am: a leader, an intellect, and an active citizen.
I love it. I absolutely love it. So I want us to jump to your story. You have an amazing story. We've spoken about it for quite some time. Actually, me and Simphiwe have a very good relationship, and we speak quite often, and so I kind of have an idea of what her story is like, but I'd like her to share the story with you so that it's clear. But you've had your own version of ups and downs in life, as we all do, And I could actually vouch and say that you came out at the top of your situations time and time and time again. And that's why this part of the podcast is really going to be interesting, because your story is amazing, man. Your story is absolutely amazing. From the downfalls to the uprising to the active work that you do. Everything combined, man, it's absolutely amazing. So would you please share for us your story?
Okay, thank you. So the essence of my story actually ties back quite well with the identity part that we've just dealt with.
Yeah.
In that I feel, in fact, even with my introduction, being an accountant, that talks too much. So when just dating back, and my story is around what at a time was a very adverse place to find myself in, has worked out to be my greatest blessing.
Ooh.
And that's been my career. Thanks, it's a gem, right?
Yeah.
So that's been the journey of my career, where I believe I'm quite intelligent, and not only when it comes to perhaps intellect outside of academia, but it also spiraled into a successful academic journey throughout my school career. So when I got to matric, literally in South Africa, where you get to choose subjects in your grade 10 year, I did what we call double science in accounting, which means post my matric year, I could have gone into a career in medicine, a career in accounting, a career in anything.
Double science in accounting means you did life science, physics. You did life science and you did physics and chemistry, and then you did accounting.
Yes.
To be clear with the double science, yeah.
Yeah. So, post then, I matriculated with 6 distinctions. Again, literally.
Bam.
Yeah, killed it.
Yeah.
And literally at that point, I could have studied anything. So at that point, I selected to study accounting, and biggest motivation was of all these subjects that I was getting A's for, I was killing accounting. And at that time, the profession, chartered accountants, had a very limited number of black women in the profession, black people, but in particular black women in the profession. So we were living at a time where being black and female honestly was groundbreaking. In terms of whatever you were doing, you were probably going to be amongst the first black people to be doing that, and so forth. So, but also not only was it motivated by that, as a kid, I've always thought that I wanted to work in corporate. I remember back in the day picturing myself driving a black Mercedes Benz, wearing a skirt suit, coming into a glass corner office. So those were just perhaps inspired by movies and so forth, but that's where I saw myself.
My A-list.
Right? So fast forward, I get into the top university in South Africa, in fact in Africa, the University of Cape Town.
Is it still the best?
Of course.
Wow.
I go for the best or nothing.
Hey,
like Mercedes-Benz. So
Flex.
Yeah.
Nice.
So then I go to the University of Cape Town, and at that time, and I believe still today, it was the top accounting university in South Africa. So I've always believed in surrounding myself with the best. Anyway, I get to UCT, I study accounting. First 2 years, golden key, which means I'm in the top 15% of my class, and everything is going well.
Wow.
I then get to my third year, and bearing in mind I had always been quite strong academically even throughout my schooling career. So I get to my third year at university, and my final results come out. At UCT, your results come out literally a week before graduation. So flights are booked. We're ready to celebrate my degree. I'm also turning 21. So,
Yeah.
It's just the perfect combination.
That is what. Yeah, I was about to say that's one hell of a combo right there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So come the day of the results, I then find out I have failed accounts 3, and I need to write a supplementary exam.
Yeah.
Now, biggest shock of my life, because not only had I never failed, but not even during the year of that particular academic year had I failed to indicate that there was a possibility of me not making the year. So I'm in shock, failing for the first time, but also I'm in shock just dealing with and embarrassed, because I've now failed at a time where flights for my graduation have been booked.
Yeah.
Okay. Nonetheless, I go write the supplementary exam. Yeah. Now I really fail, which means I now need to redo the whole year.
Yeah.
I redo the whole year. And even at that point, there's so many questions in my head. Is accounting for me? I'm not a person who normally fails. So did I even make the right choice to start with?
Yeah, questioning yourself, basically.
Yes, like every day is a struggle of what have I done to myself? How could I have done this to myself, where I choose a degree that not only embarrasses me in front of the world, but like I'm clearly not good at this. How do I fail,
Yeah.
So just to then not make it a long story, I go through that year where I'm now repeating accounting alone. I think I added some subjects just to keep busy, but the bulk of it really was done. But nonetheless, I finished the year, and lo and behold, I get another supplementary exam.
Yo.
Now I am completely defeated.
But I also made a record with supplements. This is just me being honest and frank. By the way, guys, I always do this when me and my sister's talking, actually with a lot of people, where I cut in and then somehow I take over the conversation. So, but I'm just trying to say that I didn't know that she had supplementary tests and exams. So when she's saying this now, what's ringing in my head is that I once had 4 modules come back as supplements. Now, that is crazy because I only had 4 modules to study. So for all of them to come back as subs can just tell you how I was doing in that course. But like, we're not there. Simphiwe, your story.
Yeah. So then by the way, so in the year that I failed, and I'm dealing with this disappointment, I try and pick myself up. And I'll keep coming back to the identity thing. So I've always believed in myself, and I've always believed I'm intelligent, I'm capable, and I've always believed that I was destined for greatness. So in the midst of the disappointment and the failure and everything else that was going on, I started, and remember I was questioning whether I should be an accountant or not. So I started attending career days at varsity where different companies would visit, and I got to hear more about other opportunities that other companies offered. And in that year, also just to contextualize, before I failed, I was actually on a bursary, right?
Yeah.
Which paid for everything. So the moment I failed, the bursary fell out, right? So my parents had to cover my fees in the year that I failed.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Then while I'm at varsity doing that repeat year, Unilever then comes on campus, and they really were like a lifeline, because they then come and they bring like a graduate program, and their graduate program, you are not required, so you had to go through this extensive like test to be admitted into the program and so forth, which I then did. And when I was admitted, I then learned I don't need to stay in the finance discipline, right? I can literally go to this Unilever. They had like a weekend where all the people that were chosen from different universities across the country would be taken into this like an accelerated business case study thing that you do over a weekend.
Oh, wow.
So I get to do this whole thing. Long story short, I make it through and I'm hired by Unilever. And Unilever's like, dude, whether you study accounting or you want to work in wherever you want to work, we just want you. So you can be anything you want to be at Unilever. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
The asset.
You know?
The A-lister.
Right?
Yeah.
They pay back my previous sponsor, bought out by Unilever.
Yeah.
Life is good. So I'm like, here is an opportunity to start over, right?
Yeah.
And life at Unilever is great. I actually went into HR because in the year of finding myself, I'll call it, I actually decided I wanted a career that had a lot to do with making a difference in people's lives.
Yeah.
And HR in a corporate perspective was then the ideal place, you know?
Yeah.
So I went into HR. I did very well. Then Murphy's Law, I'm here in HR, and then I start thinking, shucks, but I don't have an HR degree. If I want to leave Unilever one day, I'll have HR experience, but no HR degree. What's going to become of me? Then I have like a meltdown. Now I'm trying to move careers. So because I'm performing so well
in this HR thing,
yes, I'm given an opportunity in my next career discussion to make a move to wherever I want to go.
So you finish your degree, and then you do not work what you study.
Yes.
You actually work in HR.
Yes, and I don't have an HR degree.
And that frustrates you.
Yes.
Right.
It not frustrates me, but it made me nervous. It was, and perhaps it was just the mind, but the nervousness came around.
It was unsettling.
Yes, it was the thought of, if tomorrow I want to leave and pursue like other options.
Yeah.
In this instance, I don't have an alternative because I'm not qualified to do the job that I'm doing. But I also do feel I probably overworked my mind unnecessarily.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, I then get an opportunity to move into finance. To date, I think that probably was the worst move of my entire career.
Moving back to finance?
Moving into a finance role, and perhaps maybe also contextualize, take responsibility of my actions, but also the environment. I think I moved into a finance role at a time where the particular environment in the workplace was not ideal. So, long story short, that role drove me to depression. And I then was I felt stuck. I felt like, what have I done to myself? Here I am top student, A plus, 6 distinctions. I could have become anything in life I wanted to be, and here I was practically just trying to survive.
So, by what I'm hearing from you, the lack of not having a plan B brought so much nervousness and you were so unsettled that you were in a straight up existential crisis, basically.
Exactly. So I then decided to take a gap year, took the year off, and went to work as a teacher in Thailand.
Oh, so, I love that.
Yeah, I loved it too. But
nice.
So
shout out to all the teachers out there, man.
So bearing in mind, right, the fact that, as I mentioned earlier, I've always, so who am I, right? Yes. I said a leader, an active citizen, and an intellect. Yeah. So these things constantly prop up in the journey of my life. So even with the move to Thailand, right? Yeah. I'm in a place where I'm literally doing something I've never done before. I need to show up, give direction, influence. Being a teacher is very much about leadership, to be honest.
Thank you. No, I understand.
So
from a teacher's perspective,
at that time, funny enough, I used to watch. So I lived in Phuket in Thailand, and at that time I used to watch a lot. It was Oprah's final year, right? Doing her talk show. And one of the things that she said in the interviews was, she looked forward to coming to work every day because she knew she was making a difference in people's lives. And that's what teaching in Thailand was for me. It was the break I needed from corporate, but most importantly, literally walking into a classroom with children who knew no English word. Like, you go good morning, you go hello, they literally do not respond because they do not speak the language at all. And the importance of English in this context is it's a medium of communication for people to get jobs around the world and so forth. So one of the most fulfilling experiences was when you get closer to the end of the year and you literally having a conversation with someone whom you met a few months ago and they knew not a single word, and with that understanding that I've made a difference in that child's life, and tomorrow they would be able to grow up one day, use the foundation laid by myself and then all other teachers that would follow to get a career, because they could now speak a foreign language.
And open more doors for other
them.
people.
Yeah. So it just gave it. I literally understood that statement by Oprah that every day that I woke up to go and teach, there was purpose in what I was doing, because it made a positive impact in someone's life, not only today but even in their future. Yeah. So, but then whilst I was still in Thailand, life was happening in South Africa, and again the same worry of not having a teaching degree, but I'm teaching. If I come back to South Africa and I'm not getting any younger, if I come back to South Africa one day, and I'm like looking for a job, I've been teaching but I don't have a qualification. So long story short, again I come back to the country. And then because my degree was such a closed off degree, like accounting, I literally had accounting.
What degree was that? BCOM Accounting?
Yes. So I did a big Bachelor of Commerce majoring in financial reporting. So basically my whole degree was around...
what makes you say it's closed off?
And that's the part I'm answering now. It's the subjects within that degree are auditing, management accounting, taxation, financial reporting. So it's very much a finance
Anybody who climbs that ladder is going for CA straight, nothing else.
CA or a role in a finance environment.
Auditing.
Yes,
all those things. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and bearing in mind, remember, I had already had a stint in finance, and I hated it at Unilever. So now I come back with a closed off degree. I really don't have much of an option but to end up doing my articles. So that's where I then go and do my articles. At least I can, with articles, hopefully qualify and do the board exam. At that point in my life, I'd already written off the CA thing, right?
Yeah.
But now I feel trapped. I'm like, because I studied this degree, I'm like being forced to become a CA, really, whether I like it or not, because it feels wherever I go, I keep coming back to this. Anyway, I go through the journey, I do my articles, and when I finish, and I think there's always purpose in everything that happens in your life. And when I finish my articles, prior to finishing, in the year that I was actually completing my articles, the software we used, where at the company I did my articles, they used to host annual seminars where they took us through what's new in terms of the technology that they were developing. So I then attend the seminar as usual. I had done your articles are 3 years. I'd done it the 2 years prior, and here we were again doing it for the third year. And as I sat in the audience, it felt like a light bulb, where I was looking at the people presenting the software and taking us through the updates that have happened. And I said to my friends, this is what I think I should do. I want to do.
Yeah.
And they responded and said, you would be so good at it. Let's ask them,
Yeah.
And obviously when it was happening, I really didn't think I was ever going to be brave enough to ask anyone. But I also thought we were just making conversation, not even seeing it potentially materialize into anything.
Yeah.
Anyway, during the break, we then get to chat with some of the sales team guys that were on the floor from this particular company. And then I say, I want to do what the people on stage were doing. How do I get to come work for your company? And
like that.
Like that. And then
wow.
So this girl refers me to her manager, and the manager says, gives me a business card and says I must contact them. No
qualifications were asked.
No, they didn't ask. I just said, but remember, it was an auditing and accounting software companies, and the people that were invited to this particular roadshow, if I can call it that, were people
who did
working.
BCOM Accounting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then they invite me for an interview, but I wanted to be, as I later learned, a trainer, actually, because the people who were taking us through the software were trainers in this company.
Yeah.
But the person who had taken, or whose details I had taken, was a sales manager. So when she interviews me for a sales role. And I remember even being invited for the interview. In my head, I was planning to come and tell them, dude, I'm not looking for a sales job.
Yeah.
I want to be the people that were on stage, right? So then we have this whole conversation, and then during this interview, she's asking me if I have a target of 1 million, what would I do to, and I'm sitting there. So I answer to the best of my ability, but I'm just like, this lady doesn't get it. I'm here, I want to be a trainer. So eventually I then tell her, and then she says, no, then she asked if I had a car, because trainers have to travel. And at that point I knew, okay, because I didn't have a car, there were a lot of things that were not in my favor.
Yeah.
Okay, fast forward, I get hired for this, to my shock, because they were asking me about
The
targets
car,
for $1 million, and I mean, I didn't even know how to bring in $1 million for myself, let alone for a whole company.
For a whole company, yeah.
So whatever answer I'd given, clearly for them was, I can strategize, I can think on
your feet.
Yeah. Remember the intellect, right?
Yes,
Who
yes,
am
yes.
I? So
Yeah.
then I get hired into this role. I remember this was one of my last conversations about my career with my dad.
Yeah.
I'm like, I got a job, and the job is in sales. My dad said, okay, and it had a 6-month probation. So
Yeah.
Dad said, okay, go and do it. But then after 6 months, when the probation ends, you will come back home and prepare for next year, because then you would have by that time been accepted at med school. I mean, let's both.
And knowing Dad, I know for a fact he said that.
Yeah, and then he said, "You both."
He been looking for a doctor in the family. Seriously.
For him, it was like, dude, we gave you a chance to choose your own career, and clearly it hasn't worked out. So
I'm sure he was like, the only person who could make this come true is her, because I love her man.
I mean, both.
So
so unfortunately for him, he literally passed away a month after that conversation.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, so I have this, I go and start working in sales, to my shock, and that's where the accountant who talks too much comes in. Once I understood what I needed to do, I never knew how competitive I am, even if the competition is with myself. So sales is target driven.
Yeah.
And by my very nature, I'm goal driven. So when you give me, this is where we're going, I do my utmost best to get there, and once I get there, to be exceptional at it. There was a year where I literally became best salesperson in that time, and consistently achieving target. And in doing that, I also realized, so my role was to be internal, right? Remember, I didn't have a car and I couldn't travel to clients, so I was more on the phone with clients. And then I realized one day, sitting in on a conversation, we sell auditing and accounting software, and listening to a colleague explaining to an accountant how the software works, but the colleague did not have an accounting background. So the client kept asking something and he would respond. But because I understood accounting and I understood the software, and now I had the sales understanding as well, I could hear they were missing each other. And at that point, and for me, that always feels like that was my tipping point. Because I then explained it to the client, and for the first time, my colleague, his eyes, was like, lit up, because he understood, is that what that function in the software is for? And for the first time, he understood. It's like a big question
that he never got an answer to.
He knew if you click here, this is what happens, but he didn't understand the why. And the client kept asking something, and without understanding the why, he could have never answered the client. So that was a turning point in my career, because I then, in fact, the sales director then said Simphiwe should become the template of who we hire. So for the first time, the business actually realized hiring someone with an accounting background is important to have in our sales team, because of the way that they can transfer the knowledge. I also learned through this journey that I often say this to some friends of mine when they ask, I'm not a salesperson, but I'm a consultant, because my strategy of selling is I'll never sell anyone anything I don't believe in and I don't believe works. So because what I believe I do, I provide a solution to someone versus I'm trying to sell you because I need to make a sale and make a target.
Yeah.
And I think that is my differentiation or my gift to sales. I sell from empathy, I sell from truth, and I sell from adding value to you.
Yeah.
And that has been transformational in my career journey. And secondly, whilst there was a period in my life where studying accounting drove me to a place of frustration because I couldn't get out of it, and 2, drove me to a place of depression because I failed, finding myself at this particular auditing and accounting software company and realizing that having an accounting background has been such a gift. I became appreciative of my journey. Whilst I didn't qualify as a CA, in fact, by some interesting, let me say, miracle, my parents often said it's very important for a person to have a professional designation. NgesiZulu, they used to say, you need to be able to answer makutiwa uyini. A degree is not a professional designation, it's a qualification. And it was important for you to be registered and be recognized as a profession. So for me, having completed my articles and having the experience I had, SAICA revisited the Associate of General Accountant professional designation within SAICA and actually made it something that they were proactively promoting for people who have completed their articles, who have an accounting degree and have had the experience. So I then gained that professional designation. So I'm a recognized, qualified accountant. So that was one.
And for sure, your company saw that it's beneficial now to hire people with BCOM Accounting to work for the firm.
Exactly. But not only with...
and they knew that because of you.
Yes. And could also, in my job, for example, the fact that I'm a professional and recognized, it makes a difference even in... I'm now almost like a spokesperson for the work that we do in different platforms across the continent. And the profession, there's credibility when you introduce me, because I'm not just talking about software, but I'm talking about software as an accountant to accountants. So what at some point was a hindrance from my perspective, or a nightmare to even, think about,
came to be your advantage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because in most cases, not a lot of people have that. Most accountants cannot speak. They tend to be very reserved, conservative, shy. But remember I said I'm an accountant that talks too much.
Yes.
So the gift of the gab came to my favor. The accounting profession, together with the gift of the gab, opened new territories for me. I often say that in my current company, most of the job titles I've had have never existed prior to me. So literally, I'm a stakeholder manager today. That I'm the first stakeholder manager at CaseWare Africa. It's literally been me defining my journey, or my journey being defined by the experiences and the unique talents that I have.
Wow.
And at a time, I questioned, I'm not becoming a CA, and it almost felt like I was failing myself. But also I knew I didn't want to be a CA only for the title. I wanted, remember, leader, intellect, and active citizen. All of these things come together. And what I do today, I remember being an active citizen. Exactly. An active citizen is where I am. I want to be part of creating positive change. One of the biggest things I enjoy about the work I do is especially when we look at the rest of the continent,
Yeah.
is the software we provide literally in an era of the fourth industrial revolution allows accountants to move from manual processing to automation, which helps them to become more efficient, which can help them to become more tech savvy, so it's providing positive change within the accounting spectrum, and I get to be part of that journey. So who I am,
that's incredible,
is encompassed in the work that I get to do as part of my job. You know, one of the things I at a time when I was having my career crisis where I failed accounts 3, I wasn't sure, and when Unilever came, just before Unilever came on board, one of the things that I used to listen to was Miles Monroe, and he said the wealthiest place on earth are not the gold mines of South Africa or the diamond mines, but it is the graveyard, because there lies dreams that were never fulfilled, books that were never written, stories that were never told. That's where you find the biggest wealth, because it never got to live.
That's actually crazy, because our brother actually mentioned something like that today. I was talking to him today, and he said one of the greatest quotes he's heard are, "There's no place more expensive than the grave." And now you telling me this. So it's like the universe coinciding and being like, dude, you needed to know that kunemali emathuneni. By that I mean, like what you're saying, like there's a lot of opportunities that didn't happen, and people not taking action of their greatness and reaching their full potential.
Exactly. Yeah. So and then in the sermon that Miles Monroe says that, I mean, there might be a number of places where he says it, but the sermon I listened to, he then says, when Jesus is about to die, he says, "I have finished the work that my Father called me to do." But for me, what was important in that is when you, so he then explained it to say, when you have done the work you were called to do, you are like Jesus when you go to the grave, where you say you have finished the work. That means everything that was deposited in you, you've given to the world, and therefore now you can die. That's when you've completed your task, and you're not going to the grave with a missed opportunity. Yeah. So he made it so important to me to find the word.
Was that his last sermon?
No. Oh. This was like in 2008. He passed away in 2014.
Some people say that, this is now going on a tangent, that Miles Monroe profited his death.
Yeah.
That's
he
also
used
true.
I actually saw him in person. In person in South Africa, like the week before he passed away. And
that's crazy.
Yeah, he was in South Africa, or a month. I can't remember the exact timelines of him being in South Africa. He was at the CRC church in Pretoria, and then passed away literally
the week after that.
Yeah, a week or month after that. But like with the time frames were very short.
That's
but
nice
in the time that before he passed away, he spoke a lot about having visions of his passing. But coming back to why it was important for me to share the story about the work that you know the importance of my work. I think I remember that my prayers at that time of frustration and disappointment were, I wanted to find my work. And I often say to my friends today that I could have never predicted my life today, but I'm actually living the life of my dreams. You know, it
bar.
You know, and it goes back to, again, I'll come back to scripture where it says, I think it's in Ecclesiastes that says, "Now to him who is able to do exceedingly abundantly more than we can ever ask or think. So at that time, my prayers were just like, Lord, I just want to be able to do the work which I've been called to do. I want to be fulfilled. I don't want to have a title CA and be depressed. I don't want to, but somehow everything that I've gone through, coming back to the fact that we're talking about my story, everything that I've gone through, I needed to go through in order to bring me to a place where I can confidently say I am living the life of my dreams. The journey has had depression for days. The journey has had the highest highs, The journey has had, one of my greatest blessings around this journey is having an encounter with the Junior Chamber International, which is an international organization of young people which looks at developing leaders for a changing world.
Yeah.
And it's been an incredible part of my journey because a lot of growth of the aspect of me as a leader. Remember when I spoke about who I am?
Leader, intellect, and active citizen. Yeah.
So a lot of aspects of the growth in me as a leader and as an active citizen has actually come through the JCI journey, where again met this organization beginning of 2018, but the things that are naturally me. So I walked in, and I remember even my local organization where I saw a problem. Remember, one of the things I want to do is become a part of the solution. So I was very active in my local organization purely from a perspective of I want to be part of the positive change here. And in doing that, people saw the leader in me and accelerated my growth within that organization. Some people grow to local president of a JCI chapter in 10 years, but for me it happened in 3 years. So certain things that and I can confidently say within that chapter I'm probably one of the best local presidents. In fact, I was recognized in the country as the best JCI South Africa local president for 2020, which ultimately contributed to part of the journey as one of the 100 most influential South Africans for 2020. So all of that, it's people recognizing because of the efforts and who I am showing up as in the different opportunities that I've had to serve in within JCI. So long and short is that every good and bad thing I've experienced was necessary to get me to where I am today. And at times along the journey, I probably didn't see it because you don't get the full picture beforehand. But I'm grateful for every step. And I think what it's done for me is even when adverse situations come, there is a sense of hope that firstly, this too shall pass. And secondly, because I've always believed I'm destined for greatness, this is part of getting me to that great destination.
Wow.
This is my story.
Absolutely amazing. As I said, guys, we got a hell of a guest today, giving us nothing but the best as I anticipated. Wow, your story is amazing. So to close off the show, I have one more question to ask you, and I want to know, what do you think is the biggest issue that our youth is facing in today's time in South Africa particularly?
Oftentimes when that question is asked, the response from most people will be unemployment.
Yeah.
But
which is fine because it's your take on it, you know what I mean?
But for me, it is more of a mindset challenge.
Elaborate on that, please.
So I feel that the biggest challenge that we face, our young people face today, is
decision making.
Not only decision making, but it's a frame of mind where, and perhaps it's it's also been influenced by this, like the way that things have been set up. But I feel the way young people think, and it's not all, but in some instances where there's a sense of entitlement, so and lack of proactiveness at times, and it's more a mindset issue where people are victims of circumstances rather than proactively challenging the status quo, you know. For example, we have a high dependency now on social grants, whereas I believe that there could have been a better approach, but because the moment the government made social grants available,
people took the easy route.
Even before the 350, the whole kids thing where you got a social grant for having a kid, people would have 4 kids so that they can get
the money.
To 2,000 rand, which is short-sighted at times in thinking, because yes, today you're getting 2,000 rand, but you've got 5 mouths to feed, and you know the you exacerbating poverty. So that type of thing.
Would you say it's lack of long-term thinking that people have?
Yeah, like there's
lack
just
of vision.
There's something within this context of how people are thinking that for me is a concern. Unemployment is real, and I'm not undermining that, but also I feel we are victims, or we are accepting to be victims of our circumstances rather than being proactive to, you know, if we have
more reasons for not doing something than we have to do it.
Exactly. I've traveled the continent, and the shift, I mean, people often make examples about Nigerians being corrupt and criminals, but there's no economy I know then Nigerian, they call it hustling, but they've got some
grind,
some way of making money. Like
they got that grind.
Yes, you know, and in even other parts of Africa, one of the guys from Nigeria actually made an example of, leave me anywhere. In fact, they remind me of Chinese people. Leave me anywhere in the world with nothing, and I'll come back home with money, food, and
wow.
Because they don't.
That's real dope.
Yeah, they don't go in with a victim mentality, but it's okay. I've come here. I don't have anything. How do I make sure I make something? Yeah. So I'm not saying that other nations are better than us, don't get me wrong, but I do believe that there is definitely a mindset shift that needs to take place within our young people, so that we can become a prosperous South Africa, a South Africa that is not dependent on government and taxpayers to keep the economy. Let me rather say that's not dependent on government for everything.
All right, thank you, Simphiwe, for tuning in to the Life Limitless Podcast. You are nothing but short of amazing, and your story is very impactful, and I know that many of our listeners will be empowered and will learn a lot from your story. Yeah, thanks a lot for tuning in.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, guys. You are listening to another episode of the Life Limitless Podcast with your boy Zuma, where we talk all things life and the topics are limitless. Thank you so much. Today's guest was Simphiwe Zuma, my sister, bringing in the gems, like I said in the beginning. And I actually feel like it's going to be one of those great episodes where I'm always going to come back to it and reference it and be like, man, we actually did that. But yeah, thank you guys for listening. Thank you for tuning in. Till we meet next time on the next episode. Peace.